Heck yeah. Alrighty. Well, Kelly, thank you for being on this episode, doing this show with me. I really do appreciate it. The name of it is Transcend Breaking Boundaries. Cause I feel like those boundaries got to be broken out here. They got to be broken. You got to break through these ceilings. And I wanted to specifically talk to you mainly because you during COVID, during 2020, you started Allies for Black Americans, Facebook group. And that it's y'all have seen y'all been out here doing a lot. Keep it going. Y'all have done a couple of marches and everything, and then the conversations. And and you were constantly posting stuff for people to read, things for people to think about. And I want to say that right there sort of motivated me to want to do this too, because people need to really start having these conversations more and not just sit on the sidelines. And wait. And so exactly, people and I feel like everyone's just very complacent right now.
Mm-hmm.
What I do want to ask though, what was the motivation outside of everything that was going on in 2020? What really hit the nerve for you to start that group?
I have to attribute George Floyd's murder to that. Having Black children. Now, I grew up in LA, so police brutality, police violence is nothing new to me. It is something that you are hyper aware of, especially in the 90s when I was a teenager. Was really bad. You could get picked up for no reason, dropped off in like some gang territory that's unfamiliar to you, and they'd be like, good luck getting home. So the distrust was kind of already there. And as a Black person, I know that, we have to have these talks with our children about how to conduct themselves, about police, about the world in general. But I watched that video. I watched it probably 15 to 20 times. I kept watching it. And I thought to myself, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of having a fear that my children may not come home for whatever reason. And at that point, it was just kind of like I felt like I got this calling that I needed to answer. I had no idea how quickly, our membership base would grow. I really wanted to, I felt like if I didn't do anything, then my sick and tired wasn't sick and tired enough. And so that was kind of the catalyst for it. And really wanting, we were at a time that was during COVID, and we were at a time when people who normally wouldn't have seen that incident watched it and were outraged. And I realized they probably think this is like an isolated incident, that all the things that we have been saying for how many hundreds of years is not actually accurate. It's not as bad as we say it is. And it started as kind of like, I want to be the change. Even if it's changing myself or planting seeds, I really felt it important that we teach true American history. That is Black history. It's true American history. We're in a day and age where we have the wherewithal to have more factual evidence than we've ever had. And yet, and still, we're still teaching children in school that Columbus discovered America. So if we're still that far behind, that tells me that the system that was created isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed to work. And the one thing about systemic racism, it has just evolved. It hasn't changed. Slavery has not changed. There's just legal slavery now, and we use the prisons as a form of
Mm-hmm.
slavery. I don't know if you're aware, but Black and brown children, if they are by the sixth grade, if they are reading below a third grade comprehension, that is how ALEC forecasts how many jail cells to build in the next prison, because those kids are going to start to get in trouble. That's why we have policemen on campus now. Why on earth would middle schoolers need police on campus? They're
Wow.
like, we're not talking about big kids. We're talking, most of them are what, sixth, seventh grade, coming in. And
Yeah.
And we have a full, you know, LA Sheriff's Department on campus. The schools pay the police to just kind of start this cycle. By the time they're 18, they already have records. God forbid if you get into a fight. My son got into a fight. He was sucker punched and ended up with a ticket for assault and battery. So I started to see it. I started to see it for myself, even though I'd been exposed and I knew it was going on. Going through it just enraged me. And I was really angry. I was angry about the Trump situation. I just had all this built up rage inside of me. And then when George Floyd happened, I was like, okay, that's enough. Like I don't care what it is that I'm going to do, but I have to do something and I can't stop. And so I basically quit my job, started my nonprofit, and have been building it for the past 3 years.
Nice, nice. That's amazing. And I want to say, I wish more people would actually do something when they are sick and tired. Because a lot of people, they get sick and tired, but they don't really do anything. And I'll even say for myself, with a lot of stuff that I've gone through. And, I've been sick and tired of some things, but I wasn't sick and tired enough. And I always just felt that I can just continue to go through stuff. But I reached the time, because but as Black people, we're sort of conditioned to be able to withstand, to continue to go through a lot of stuff. And eventually, yep, exactly.
Survival mode. Yeah.
Exactly. And I I know people in my family, they would tell me they would never really worry about me because I'm a survivor. I could be out here doing whatever, but they never have to worry because I'm a survivor. They know I can withstand and go through all this stuff. And for a while, I thought, that for a second, I thought that was a good trait to have, to be a survivor. But as I'm getting older, I'm tired of just surviving. I don't want to be out here just surviving. I don't want to spend my life surviving because I'm tired. Eventually you just get tired. And now, and now I'm just tired, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm tired. What am I going to do about it? And I don't want other people to sit there. I don't, me as a trans man, as a Black trans man in America, I know it's a lot of us out there tired. Yeah. I don't want us to have to sit here because we know how to survive and because we've done things to make it so that we can survive in white America. Doesn't mean that we're supposed to, that we continue to have to know how to survive and go through that. And so, I figure what is it that I can do on my end to be, because I've never really saw myself as an activist or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, silence isn't an option anymore. No. And I need to be out there, foot on the ground, ready to go and start doing it. Because I was out there marching, during COVID, during 2020 and everything. I was out there. I had my sister was out there. Even my teenage sister, she even orchestrated a march and everything, a peaceful protest and everything. And I'm like, if my 16-year-old sister out here doing something, what the heck am I doing? I need to be out here doing something too. And so now, what leads me to this conversation about allyship. And I feel like people have gotten comfortable still. They've gone back to getting comfortable, and they need to be uncomfortable in order to really grow. They have to be uncomfortable. You can't grow if you are comfortable.
No, there's no such thing. It's the same thing with working out. When you work out, you're doing something good for your body. And yes, when you first start, it's sore and you hurt. But you also know that if you're feeling that, you're growing and your body's changing and conforming. There is no growth without discomfort. And I say all the time in the group, get comfortable being uncomfortable in here. It's not a comfortable place. But imagine being comfortable and having the option to say, okay, I've had enough discomfort for the day. I'm going to go back to living my white life for the rest of the evening. We don't have that option. We don't have an option to say, okay, I don't feel like dealing with that today. That's just not an option for us. And I think pointing those things out, coupled with teaching, especially non-POC, about truth of what was done to us and how that has shaped, nothing has changed. It's only evolved. The same principles and systems are still in place that were in place by our founding fathers. Nothing's changed. So you have, allyship is not okay, I'm going to take a month class and now I'm an ally. It is a lifelong commitment that you choose to be active in some way, shape, or form, whether it's educating yourself, whether it's speaking up on behalf of that one Black person in the office that nobody's talking to, and that's what my nonprofit is. It's providing those tools to know when and how to speak up and to know when to be quiet.
Yep. That too.
Quiet.
That too. That is a thing. That too. I was reading White Fragility because I remember you had posted it in the group, and I just recently started reading that one, and then My Grandmother's Hands, because I was listening to a podcast, and I was the author of that book was on the podcast, and one of the things that in both the books it talks about, white people accepting the fact that they don't know and they don't understand. And in order for them to actually be allies, they have to accept it. It doesn't make them a bad person. Just accept that you don't know because you're not living through that experience. You're not going through it. So you can't speak on it. So the best way for you to really be an ally is to look into yourself and understand that you don't know and don't take offense to it, but be prepared to really question yourself in all of this.
Yeah. And, when you're doing that work, we even provide shadow work. When you're doing that work, you're not just healing any form of racism. You're really healing yourself. And it makes you a better person all the way around, to be accepting and not judgmental. Judgment in our country, thou shalt not judge. We are the most judgmental people, especially in religions, and I won't name any, but just the most judgmental people when, I always say nobody walks up to a heterosexual person and ask them what their preference sleeping in bed with, who they want to sleep with, or who do they sleep with. Nobody does that. Now, if someone assumes that you are not heterosexual, oftentimes that question can come up. And what gives anybody the right? It's none of your business. Mind your
No one's business. No one's business.
Listen, it is nobody's business.
None at all. And just on that right there though. So me being, I'm trans and, I'm wearing the shirt that says I'm pansexual. So society sort of put this pressure and this image that I had to be a certain type of trans, especially being, because I'm already Black and I already got to be a certain type of Black. So me being trans, I got to be a certain type of trans. And, it sort of built this like internal hate for myself because I knew I wasn't being true to myself and just being my true self. Now, I'm not sitting here saying I need to tell the world that I sleep with everybody and everything like that, but I was hiding it from myself at the same time because society has that trans people are supposed to be a certain type of way. And if you are trans, you got to be what society thinks a trans person is supposed to be. Yeah. And that's not the case. Just like if you're Black, you got to be what society says a Black person's supposed to be. No, that's not the case whatsoever. And I shouldn't have to, Black people, trans people shouldn't have to feel like they got to suppress their voice and suppress themselves to conform to what society wants from us. And I feel like, you know, white people expect that from black people. We're supposed to shut up and be quiet. No, it's the time of
speak properly.
Yeah,
oh, you
no.
Sound so white. You sound white. What does that mean? What?
Right, like what does exactly? And then I remember my mom, you know, when she would answer the phone, and I would sit there and I would tell her, "Mom, you sound white." And because I didn't know it was my mom, but then I realized that was something society was putting that type of verbiage onto me to sit there and project to my mother. She sounded like my mother, and if that's what a black educated woman sounds like, she sounds like a black educated woman. She doesn't sound white. She sounds like a black educated woman, a professional woman on the phone. And I mean, what I want to point out is when it pertains to allies is they have to differentiate what society is expecting from us in order for them to really be an actual ally. Like understand that everything that happened in the past 400 plus years ago wasn't right. It's all wrong. It's still all wrong now.
Yeah.
And if you got the mass majority of us telling you it's wrong, it's wrong. Yeah. It's wrong. I think
that's what George Floyd did for us is it was so brutal and so blatant what was happening. And you do have allies, you know, standing on the side saying, you know, hey, this isn't right. Check his polls. So it wasn't even that. It was just so blatant. And I think that in that moment, it really allowed me to see that I don't think that white people really believed that this is all still happening. It was kind of like, oh, that happened so many hundreds of years ago. But we have still yet to acknowledge slavery and what it has and continues to do. People still don't believe the school to prison pipeline is a real thing until it happens to you or someone you care about. Then all of a sudden there's a change in tone. Like I mean, I'd heard of those things, but I had no idea. I always say if we can get white people to love us like they love their little doggies, the world would be a better place.
Right? Yeah. Yes. View us how you view the little doggies.
Off the street, they got insurance.
That's true. That's true. And that's what's needed. That's the type of love and care is what's needed for the black community. And it's okay to love us like that. It's okay to love trans people like that. Because there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with black people. Stop looking at us like, you know, we're that in White Fragility, you know, there was a part in the book that she was talking about how black people were viewed and how her neighborhood was viewed because of the dangers, looking at black people as if they were a danger. And so the value of her neighborhood was because there were more white people in her neighborhood. So that's what made her neighborhood safer. So putting that type of value on black people, you know, is what the problem is now. Like value us as individuals. And then you can sort of really start to see, but white people don't value us. They don't see us as anything of real value.
The fiber of this country, every kind of nuance is based on fear and fear of black people. Ibram X. Kendi is coming out with a documentary on Netflix later in the month based on his book called Stamped from the Beginning. And it's basically our history, but it just shows how we were stamped from the beginning. We were the, you know, every type of media where you've got the first, and the name escapes me of the movie, but the first movie with a black person in it, he's raping a white woman. They were taught to fear us. It wasn't anything we did. It was taught. It's all learned behavior that is subconsciously and now generationally goes from generation to generation to generation. You can only teach what you know. You can't teach what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. And I always say that my foundation is like, I tell the white people, it's like when you get a new pair of glasses and you didn't realize how bad your vision was until you put on the new pair of glasses and you're like, oh shit, I can see that. oh wow, like I didn't realize I didn't realize it was that bad. Even if it's not terrible, it's still better. You're still focusing better. You're still able to see things crisper and more clearly. And telling the truth and owning the truth and accepting and taking accountability is where we start, so that because once you put on those glasses, you're not going to take them off if you can't see without them, right? So you put these glasses on in my foundation, and now all of a sudden you're like, I had no idea that any of this stuff happened or was happening. And that's by design. Again, everything that this country does is by design. It is not an accident. It is not just our legislation. It is all designed to work the way it works. It is not broken. It needs to be dismantled and rebuilt. But the only people that can dismantle that system are the people that made it, and that would be white people.
Yep. That was one of the key points in White Fragility that she said. In order, all the major institutions that we have are ran and designed by cis white men,
Yeah.
and designed specifically to keep them in power, to keep them running it. Because I mean, and I was looking at the numbers, and the numbers are just daunting. And now, my question: what would you recommend white people do to, because they're not gonna sit there and want to get rid of the privileges that they have. They don't want to. In reality, not too many of them really want to be uncomfortable. Not too many of them want to let
They don't have to
go
be.
of all this stuff. And so they say, well, I'm gonna be an ally, but I'm gonna, to this extent. I'm gonna do it up to this extent because this still it's my comfort. And I feel like it's fear based that for
Yeah.
them not wanting to go to the extreme. What would you say to those individuals? Like, how do you feel that they should address that and to overcome that?
I mean, I think until something happens to you or to someone you care about, we have people that naturally are compassionate people, and then we have people that become allies because maybe they were raised in a racist home and now their son or daughter is married to a black person. And now they want to see their grandkids, but now they've got biracial grandkids, and I don't know how to sit with that. I don't know how to feel about that. I have people from teenagers all the way up to 70 something years old. Some people came to us later like, hey, I'm in this situation and my daughter and I haven't spoken for 10 years because I disowned her when she married a black man. And really sitting with why, a lot of times they can't even tell you why. And so I think for me there's definitely white fragility. I think for me, I had a conversation with Angela Davis and I asked her about allyship. And she said, when white people can get comfortable with black people leading, then we can have change. Until that happens, it'll just be about learning and educating and small but implemental change, but not mass change. I have hope that Gen Z is a lot more. I hate using the word woke, but they're more aware than I think any generation has been. And I think now you have neurodivergent people, and we have a slew of the LGBTQ plus, and people are proudly owning their queerness, and you have representation on TV, and so that's kind of happened a lot faster than even acknowledging the slavery and acknowledging the systemic racism, because you have systemic and then you have personal racism, and some people just don't like certain things, and that's fine. But you never want to hurt somebody because of it. Like that, what gives you that right? I always say educating is at the foundation, and I think it really matters what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to be a person that stays ignorant? I don't you know, I always say black people are indoctrinated, but white people are indoctrinated too. They're just indoctrinated differently. So their indoctrination comes in a form of privilege, of thinking that they're top at the top of the food chain, like they're the masters of the universe, using that privilege to help less fortunate, to help, you know, people of color, to help LGBTQ plus, using that privilege. And I say this, you don't have to necessarily give up your privilege. You just have to use it more wisely. You have to use it in a way that isn't going to negatively affect, because then it's not really privilege. And then it's just like, oh, I'm better than. And then we have this hierarchy, which is what exists now. I think sitting with that, educating, and really understanding, we've all been hoodwinked. You're no exception. You feeling like you are the master of the universe is by design. It's not true. It's fake. It's a facade. It's not real. It's not tangible. It's not. But everything in our system is designed to reinforce that feeling over and over and over again. Our social media, news, movies. You look at Black movies, you look at white movies. Very different, types of storytelling going on. But I think it's also a level of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And when you can be uncomfortable, and it can be something just as simple as, having the sex talk with your kid for the first time. It's not so comfortable, right? It's a little awkward. You're kind of like, oh. It's the same thing. Having those conversations. We live in a society now where it's like you have a bunch of keyboard warriors, so people can talk shit over the computer without having to say it to your face, because they know they won't say it to your face. But having those uncomfortable conversations in a way that allow people to grow from. And, I don't bite my tongue necessarily when I'm speaking to white people, because I want them to have me authentically. But I do recognize that the fragility is very real. And so there is a way that it has to be done in order for it to be accepted at all. I hope that someday that changes. But for now, even to get allies in the door of allyship, there has to be a willingness on their part, again, to be uncomfortable and to be in a space where Black people are leading and Black people are telling their experience, and you're not trying to understand the experience from your point of view, but from the other person whose point of view. And I see all the time now in AFBA, some of my allies that have been with me for all 3 years will start to correct other white people. Don't tone police this Black person in this group. We don't do this here in this group. Right. And I'm like, all right, go ahead, girl, go ahead. I had a girl call me a couple years ago and say, I got fired for the first time in my life, and I've never felt so good about it. And I was like, okay. And she's like, yeah, there is a, Black woman that was kind of hired for, the token Black person that they had to have. And nobody really spoke to her. And corporate was always on her about her hair and this and that and the other. And so this white lady stepped up and she went to HR and she's like, I think it would do us some good to have some kind of diversity training, which is bullshit, by the way. Just let me throw that in there, because it's not taught by Black people. Diversity training or some sort of thing. And the HR said yes. And then they never had it. And she kept reminding them, and eventually they fired her. But that's being an ally. When you're not afraid to forego something that is your privilege in order to speak up for someone else. And that feels good. It feels good. If we can get used to that feeling good, rather than, I don't want to be the odd man out. I don't want to be the one that speaks up. I don't want to be the one that steps in. Having the courage, that takes a different kind of a person to begin with. There are people that are doers. There's allyship in so many forms and ways to do it, that allyship is different for each person, and it means something different to each person, and how they perform their allyship is different for each person. Some people can only educate themselves. They're too afraid to speak up. Some people want to march. Some people want to, put together the roster behind the scenes. And it's really just collectively getting allies to come together so that everybody's playing a part. And when everybody's playing their part, change happens.
Yep, I agree. I was talking to someone earlier, and it was in the main point was, collectively as a group, we got to have, and it doesn't matter really what part you want to play as an ally, but there just needs to be more people wanting to do it. And if there's more people wanting to do it, we'll find a place for you. We'll help you figure it out where to go to help, make this movement happen and to be a part of this. You had said something now, I've been told, um, I'm not necessarily a gentle person in the sense of how, you know, I speak when I speak about some things.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's been more white people to say that to me, and so you had mentioned being able to help them. You know, they want to be they have to want to be an ally, but
Yeah.
being able to nurture them into doing that, and I feel like that's not me as a person, but I want to be able to know how to be, because how I see it, you know, and this can either be the fact that I grew up in DC, was raised I don't got time to be gentle, but
No.
but how do I help the next person? How do I help someone that requires that gentle touch in order to be an ally, so that I don't scare them away from wanting to be a part of the change?
They're if they want to be scared away, they're going to be scared away regardless. They'll find something that upsets them to say, I don't want to do this anymore. So again, it is a commitment, and it's saying, you know what? Oh, I fucked up. I'm going to start again tomorrow. I should probably shouldn't have said that. Let me do better tomorrow, or let me recognize that I shouldn't have said that, or you know, I'm not always gentle, but I am aware that because they have been coddled most of their life, and because they have a privilege that they get to experience that we don't, it can come off as angry, and we have every right to be. Don't get me wrong. But, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And I can be direct, and I can be, I can say my piece without doing it in a way. Like I said, if their feelings are going to be hurt, they're going to be hurt. That's not, you know, that's just not it. I think the bigger picture for me is letting them know it's okay for you to feel that way. Your feelings are valid, right? It's okay for you to feel however you feel. If I hurt your feelings, then I hurt your feelings. But let's get up and let's try again. It's that okay. I'm going to take my. I say this all the time. Allies want to take their ball and go home when things don't go their way. I'm going to take my ball and go home. I don't want to play anymore. And that's the end of their allyship, right? And that you're just like, well, typical. Like they just don't want to do it. But I think when we get into a mind space that people are human, we're all soul beings having this human experience. It's not really about our carcass or our skin or any of those things. And I know for myself, I'm an ally too. I have to be an ally. I can't ask other people to be an ally, and I'm not an ally. And that has caused it's I've had to do a lot of work coming from a space, and a time where I did come from, where things were not so open at all. You know what I mean? And um, I think there's ally in everybody. I think some people are ready to experience and explore, and some people are ready to jump in head first. I always say, because you can take a break, you should take a break. If it's uncomfortable for you and you need a week to just kind of sit on things and process things, take that week. It's Nothing's going to happen to you in a week. And I think once they realize, like, I'm afforded this opportunity to just remove myself from, you know, the goings on of the world because it doesn't affect me directly. In the end, it does affect you. How much it affects you and on what level is really for you to decide as an ally. Like, does this bother me enough that I actually want to go make changes myself? Or if I want to, we teach people how to speak up when they see, if they see a black person being pulled over and it doesn't look right, or they've got, three kids on the grass, in handcuffs. Get out of your car and start filming. They're not going to arrest you, and you could possibly be saving three kids' lives. That feels a lot better than just driving by and going home, and then you see it on the news and you're like, oh my God, I could have done something to prevent that. I think innately we do want to do things. I think our society has groomed us to, if it doesn't affect me, it's not my business. But the business of one of us should be the business of all of us.
I agree. I agree. Now, talking about allyship, you having to be an ally. Um,
Yeah.
I want to, I've been transitioning for about 16 years or what have you. And I'm a transgendered black man in America. That right there, that is a mouthful for some people to really understand and accept, because it's I've had to go through a lot of stuff, and not to mention that I, made the choice to transition while in the military too.
Right.
So that was also like a lot of stuff to go through. And I mean, and it's taken me some time to really sort through it all myself individually, because it was a lot. I've gone through some things that, good thing I'm in therapy to really have to work through. And I want other people to be like yourself, want to be allies for the LGBT community, especially the trans community, because there are individuals that are part of that community who still see trans people or non-binary people as if we're aliens, as if we don't have emotions, and as if we're not out here struggling, because the struggle was real. I struggled. The struggle was real. Yeah. And I needed more people then. I mean, the situations I've been in, even when it was like, the reason why I lived my life as stealth most of the time, because even when I was out there in Cali, I wasn't really no one really knew. I wasn't out about it because I was concerned about my job. And I mean, I've lost jobs before, when I was out in the beginning, for being trans. I mean, and I had already lost jobs for being black. So I can't add on the fact that I'm trans as well. Then I feel like that's an automatic out the door. And it's hard for black people to survive in a country that's not meant for them to survive in. So, I had to, keep it to myself. People saw stuff happen to me. And it would have been nice for them to have stood up then. And I'm, again, this is over a decade of me transitioning. I'm pretty sure they didn't really know what to do or how to stand up for me. Because even then, I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't really know. And it's not like I really came from a family who, supported me being trans. And that's a big thing there too. You have to have, I didn't really have anyone to support me. It was more so the little friends that did knew was really the support that I had. And when I was telling Christina, like, her giving me a place to stay, that helped me a lot, transitioning, because I didn't have, other than my granny, I didn't really have anybody. And my granny is old woman who's deaf. She don't really understand much what's going on either, but she knew that I needed love, and that's what she gave me. And I want to help others understand. But again, this is where it comes from, being the gentle part, because I'm at the same time, I'm not gentle. And I mean, I remember you had asked me over Facebook about something, and I had explained it to you that, not all trans people are the same. Some things might not affect some, but it affects others. And, I don't necessarily group myself into a lot of trans individuals, because I served in the military. I grew up in the hood. It was a bunch of different things that play into who I am as an individual. But like I said, I'm black first before I am trans. But the two are, I am the two. And so, I want someone to be an ally because I'm black, but then I don't want them, when they find out that I'm transgender, oh no, that's I don't know what that is. I don't know. I can't support that. Why? Nothing changed. Nothing about me changed. So why is it that you can't support it now? How do I help those individuals, if those individuals can be helped? Because I feel like right now, things, like you said, things are a lot more open when it pertains to the LGBT community and so forth, but progress isn't where it really needs to be. Trans folks are still out here being killed, and some by partners, because their partners don't understand it themselves, that they're attracted to someone who's trans, but they're too worried about what their friends might say about the situation. And so they, want to attack a trans female, attack a trans person, because they don't know how to deal with it. What do you think I can do on my end to help
individuals to not see it as taboo, not see it as something that should be ashamed. They should be ashamed of.